All right, guys, we're going to do some special tests of the hip. So one of the first tests we're going to test for is for IT band syndrome and IT band tightness. So we're actually going to test this down at the knee because it's the easiest for body positioning. We're going to take our thumb and we're going to drive it into their lateral knee, right above the femoral condyle, pushing that IT band in, making it tighter, and then instructing our athlete to extend their leg. If they have IT band syndrome, this is going to recreate that pain, recreate that symptom that they have along the side of their leg. So again, taking your thumb, pushing into that IT band, and having them extend their leg. Good. To test for tightness of the hip flexors and the quadriceps, we're going to do the Thomas test. We're going to have our athletes go all the way to the edge of the table, putting their butt just on the table a little bit, grabbing both knees and rocking back. Good. They're going to drop the affected leg. What we're going to see if they have really tight hip flexors, we're going to see this lifted leg off the edge. But because Miss Andy here is nice and flexible, hers drops well below the table, and we always want to compare bilaterally. So I'm going to have Andy switch legs. And this one drops as well. So her hip flexors are nice and relaxed. Again, a positive test would look something like this. I'm going to have Andy scoot back on the table, and we're going to test the tightness of her hamstrings. For the hamstrings, we're going to instruct our athlete to hold both legs at 90 degrees of hip flexion and 90 degrees of knee flexion. And then we're going to ask her to straighten one leg. Good. She is nice and flexible through her hamstrings, so she's able to get the leg completely straight. 1 second, guys. There we go. So we can compare both sides again. Good. If we wanted to put a quantitative number to this, we could measure the distance from the heel to the table. So say her hamstring was really tight and she was starting right here, we could measure from the heel to the table, work through rehab, work to stretch, and then come back to this activity later, hopefully increasing the distance and therefore increasing the length of her hamstring. Now we're going to test the labrum of her hip. The labrum protects the ball and socket from the hip joint. So we're going to come into her hip, we're going to flex it. Let me come on the other side so you can see what I'm doing. We're going to flex the hip, we're going to push down through that femur, and then we're going to grind the hip in the socket. This is very similar to that Appley's test where we're trying to provoke pain, re-aggravate that meniscus or that labrum, see if there's any tears there. Now we're going to check for SI joint dysfunction. SI joint dysfunction, remember the sacrum meets the ilium and they articulate on one another. We're going to palpate the SI joints on both sides. We're going to make sure our thumbs are right on top, and we're going to instruct our athlete to bend down, forward flex. And what you'll see, you can even see here in the video, is that my right thumb and my left thumb are not moving in unison. Therefore, would indicate SI joint dysfunction. Her left SI joint is stuck. We would need to adjust that or manipulate the muscles to allow for that proper movement. So she's actually probably experiencing some pain on the left side. And then finally, we're going to assess glute med strength. Glute med can lead to that SI joint dysfunction. We're going to have our athletes put their hands on their hips. We're going to have the athlete take 1 foot off the ground. Her hip should stay level. If they are not level, that indicates that the hip she is standing on has a weak glute med, that hip pops up. So again, they are on both legs. Let me zoom down a little bit. Okay? And she's going to go up on one leg. We're making sure that her hips stay level with each other. Rock on.